Olin, Hall of Fame voter, and get his thoughts on what he saw on Sunday. Were you shocked, Jace, that they took him apart like that?
Shocked that they took him apart like that. Yeah, I mean, but sometimes like games get away from people. Sometimes, especially in that circumstance. I mean, we talked about the Eagles were, they'd just gone through a rough stretch of 5 games, right? Like, there's a lot of mental toughness, high that went into that, and then all of a sudden things blow up and games get out of hand. I remember you remember the playoff game years and years ago between the 49ers and the Giants. That was 49-3, right?
Completely got out of hand.
Just games sometimes get like that. Now, did the 49ers clearly outplay the Eagles in that game? Yes, of course. Nobody who watched that game would say that the Eagles were close to being the best team on the field. Was it this bad between those two teams? No. I mean, I think if you look at the first half, it's a little more competitive first half, and then it starts to get out of hand, and then all of a sudden, like the Eagles are just kind of shot. And that happens sometimes. And it happens even sometimes in big games. But if you told me they were playing the NFC Championship game in a week, I would say, yeah, I think the 49ers have a good chance of winning. I don't think they blow them out, right? And again, I always come back to, you play 7 times. This team wins 3, this team wins 4. But even within those games, they all play out a little bit differently, right? Like they're not all the same game. So this game, I don't think is truly indicative of where these teams are. Yes, I think the 49ers, now that they're healthy and back on track, are the best team. And on top of the 2 games that you referred to, there's the Steelers victory on the road in the opening week, and then there's the game at Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence healthy. And they smoked those 2 teams on the road, right? Like they hammered them. So they have a lot of quality victories this season when they're healthy. When they're not healthy, didn't have Trent Williams, didn't have Debo for a time. McCaffrey was banged up. 3-game losing streak. So things can change a lot.
Who's more valuable on that Niner team, Purdy or McCaffrey?
I would say McCaffrey to the engine of it. But I don't want to just say that you can plug any quarterback in there and they would do the same things that Purdy's doing. Purdy has special ability in terms of how he diagnoses things. Like they weren't anything close to this with Garoppolo at quarterback. Like, and Garoppolo is a talented quarterback. I mean, he's fallen apart a bit here, but this season, but like they weren't anywhere close to that. And he's more gifted.
He's more accurate. He's more accurate.
Who is?
Purdy.
Oh, Purdy's double plus accuracy. Like you talk about like pitchers in baseball who can like within the strike zone can manipulate a ball and put it wherever they want it to be. Those guys, like he has that kind of ability. Like he has the far spectrum of accuracy, right? What he has more than anything else, though, is also vision and timing to know I'm going to throw into the heart of your defense and I'm going to hit guys in stride. Like I'm going to find Ayuk between the hash marks. I'm going to find Samuel between the hash marks. These are dagger throws. These are not, okay, you hit us on a deep out, or you got to, you happen to fit one between the sideline, just around the defender. You get those. But these are like right in the middle, over the linebacker, in front of the safety. And those, to me, to a defense, like those unnerve defensive players. They unnerve them a lot.
Would you agree, Jace, that Brock Purdy probably saves a lot of face in that 49er front office because of the Trey Lance with the 3 first-rounders? I mean, he not only that, get this, I'd rather surrender 3 first-rounders than surrender a quarterback that's going to put me in purgatory with salary cap hell. This guy makes $900,000. There's more kickers in the league that make more money than him, which is insane.
Well, it's just, hey, look, it's the luck. Sometimes you get better
luck, like Brady luck. Is it like that? The Brady luck in New England?
Well, it's on that path. They haven't accomplished anything like what Brady did. Okay, I mean they did get to an NFC Championship game, but
I
let's
got it.
always pump the brakes
That
before we
was
get
his
to Brady
17th
land.
game as a starter, so I get it. You're right.
Yeah, like let's just hold. I mean, it's a great, amazing story. Love the kid, love everything that's going on, love where this is going, the whole bit, right? Let's just let it happen a little bit more. But yeah, everything he's done is amazing. Everything that he gets done on the field is fantastic. He is a perfect fit for what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, and how he runs his offense. He's a perfect fit with the other players around him. Whether that's Debo, Ayuk, whether it's McCaffrey, Kittle, even use Check and the offensive line. Everything works perfectly with this kid out there. But I go back to look. Remember the 3-game losing streak? There's 5 interceptions in there. When teams are able to drop 8 against him, he doesn't have Dan Marino's arm. Okay, he doesn't have John Elway's arm, where sometimes you have to fit a ball against 8 deep against you to get a comeback going. He's not going to do that. It's just, and that's going to be asking too much. The way they play, he's perfect.
I am going to go way out on a limb here, and you'll probably kill me on this one here, but I don't know if Kyle Shanahan and this guy Purdy win a Super Bowl. Wouldn't you kind of compare this to how the Niners were running back in the 80s when you had a quarterback, a front office, a guy like Montana, and a guy like Purdy, not the strongest super arm on the planet with Montana. Montana won a Super Bowl without Rice. People forget that, but he did. But it was an organizational thing. This is the best the Niners have looked organizationally, Jason, since the John McVay and Bill Walsh era. Then Carmen came in, obviously, after that. But I mean, this looks even better than even when Jim Harbaugh was there.
Yeah, I would say it's better than when Harbaugh was there because it just looks more in sync, right? It looks
Yeah,
more.
Trent Baalke was
It's
all
not
over the place, I thought.
right, and with Harbaugh, part of Harbaugh's shtick is I'm going to overpower you,
Yes.
and I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to be physically more intimidating you. And that was both on offense and on defense, but particularly on defense with those teams, right? Like I'm gonna come in here. We're gonna win a slugfest, which is the Jim Harbaugh way, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't. I'm not trying to say that that's bad football or anything like that. It's just different football. This is precision football along the lines of Bill Walsh. But both Walsh and I think Kyle Shanahan have a recognition that you better be physical on defense, right? Like
Yes.
they don't necessarily put it out there the way that Harbaugh puts
Yep.
it out there, but they both believe like you better bring the wood on defense. And even though they're offensive minded guys, they have dedicated a lot to the defense to make sure that it's good. Like Bill Walsh had Ronnie Lott back there and a great secondary. And
The
then
whole
eventually
secondary went to the Pro Bowl one year.
right. And then brought in pass rushers after pass rushers after pass rushers, with Fred Dean and all those guys. Like he had a recognition that you better hit people on defense. And Kyle Shanahan has done the same thing.
Eagles Cowboys Sunday. Is it? Do you agree that Mike McCarthy has been an upgrade for Dak, or is again? I hear people talking about the people that they've played. I get it. Still, you are killing teams too. It's not like you're not taking care of business. Now you've got to take care of the bigger business in beating the better teams. I totally get that. But am I right when I say this, that McCarthy's had a great year play calling? I mean, what's his name? Pollard is on pace for 60 catches, 1,000 yards. CD Lamb, for the first time in his career, looks like a 1. I mean, Jake Ferguson is now turning into what could be a viable tight end in that offense. I don't know, man. I mean, looks like to me, I think Mike's had a good year here this year. Or am I just, again, it's the opponents and it's other intangibles that are out there.
I think they play really sound football. And when you play against teams that are just straight up unsound and bad, you're gonna pound those teams, right? So Dak has reduced the interceptions just as they talked about, before the season. He's become far more efficient. People do talk about it as an MVP candidate. I think that's a bit much, but he certainly is deserving of conversation. He deserves to be at least vetted as an MVP candidate. I think their offensive line has been healthy all season long. Or at least for the most part, has been healthy. So that's helped them a lot. Yes, they get Pollard a lot more involved, and the previous guy didn't do that. So, look, overall, it's really good. Is it? I still think there are some things about McCarthy that are a step behind other great play callers,
Hmm.
but he's still really consistent. Okay. And I think the stuff that's a step behind is the stuff that's cost them sometimes in bigger games. Um, and we're going to see how that plays out this week. I think Philadelphia is going to smash them. I really do. I think that Philly is going to come back and, put a hurt on them. And that the only hope that the Cowboys have in this game is that Dak has another good game against the Eagles, which he has done, and has a superior game. But I think the Eagles offensively are going to come back and really try and drill the Cowboys defense, and that's playing like it's undersized right
To me, again, he's 8-4 against Philly. And you're right, he does play well. He averages 260 in the air, 70% completion percentage. He's really good. However, I've been telling people in Philly this: you're not going to run into a Niner team like that into the NFC title game. That's a loaded football team. You have
now.
the advantage at almost every position, especially on the offensive side, going into that game. To me, this comes down to this on Sunday. Don't let one ass kicking cost you 2 losses. Jace, you let something carry
Right.
over. You let something carry
Sure,
over
sure.
into another loss here and not take care of business because, dude, you've got a lot of things still on the line. You think this is a must-win for Philly to go in there and win? Because if they lose, San Francisco's got the home field at that point. They still got the Ravens on the schedule, but then Dallas and them are tied. I still think Dallas drops a couple more games. Maybe Philly doesn't. I don't know. They got Seattle on the other end of this. I mean, how big a game is this for both teams? Who needs it more, in your opinion?
Between Dallas and Philly, right?
Yes.
Well, they both need it equally. Dallas needs a shot of confidence that they can actually beat a really good team. And there's no substitute for that. You can't go in the playoffs going, we got 11 wins or 12 wins or whatever we got, and you beat every bad team on your schedule, right? You gotta have some quality wins in that, right, to make you feel confident about yourself, or yeah, you just do. Okay. And Philly needs to maintain that home field advantage, because I think if you're asking Philly to travel across the country, to San Francisco at that point, it becomes much, much more difficult. I will say there's a lot of football to play out here.
5
There's
games.
a lot of attrition to see what happens. Because again, I come back to the 49ers this week now, based on that victory, you say the 49ers are the best team in the league. But we have seen the 49ers when they are not healthy. And I don't think that's not a great team. We have seen Philly when they're banged up, and Philly still can play pretty good quality football when they're banged up. Like they were banged up last week, and for I would say 2.5 quarters, that was a competitive game, and then it got out of hand. I think Philly's better playing banged up than the 49ers are at playing banged.
Yeah, that's a very on the point here. And this is why I say with Philly, though, you drop that Dallas game, you have to do exactly what you said. Then you have to fly to Seattle and you have to get that win. And we know what it's like to go up there and try to win a ball game in Seattle.
Sure.
I mean, that's not an easy task to go up there and win that, especially when you're on a 2-game losing streak. So I agree with you. I think Dallas for confidence, because Philadelphia, in my opinion, Jason, if they go in there and beat the brakes off them, you could put them in a 3-game losing streak easily because they're not metal tested like Philly is. Or for that matter, San Francisco.
Look, I don't trust Dallas, and I am not going to trust Dallas until they prove some very serious things on the field. And I'm not just talking about this season, but this is 20 years, 30. This is now 30 years in the making. Okay, we've talked about this.
Jesus.
It is the same thing every time. They become just good enough to you start talking about, like, they get ahead of themselves. They start thinking Super Bowl. I will reiterate, that starts at the top of this organization. They go from, like, oh, we got the best record in the NFC. Oh, we're on our way to the Super Bowl. No, there are steps between regular season, playoffs, championship games, and then you get to the Super Bowl. You have to climb that ladder along the way, and they want to just, like, jump up 3 rungs. And it doesn't work that way.
Do you think
And
this
that's
is
the
the biggest
mentality.
game? Do you think this is the biggest? Excuse me, Jace. Do you think this is the biggest game in Dak's career?
I'd have to look back and check them. I mean, they got
How
the
about
playoff.
significant game?
Look, this is an opportunity. This is a huge opportunity game. Call it whatever you want, right?
Okay.
This is to put them on the map for this season. And it's like, he's going to get paid, and they're not moving on from him as a quarterback. All that talk that before, remember during training camp in the offseason, is Dak going
Yeah,
to go?
he's owed no money at the end of the year.
Yeah, Dak's coming back. Dak's making a truckload of cash. Dak is the Dallas Cowboys quarterback from now until he's no longer able to play, right? Like, we've gotten beyond that question. The question is Dak going to take advantage of a huge opportunity, especially in a year where so many quarterbacks are either hurt, right, like Aaron Rodgers out there and some others, or don't have adequate help, the way that a Patrick Mahomes does not have adequate help. Like, this is a great opportunity for a quarterback who's not quite Hall of Fame caliber to sneak in there and win one, right? And that has not happened a lot in the last 20 years. We got Nick Foles,
Flacco,
Flacco. Like, you got a couple of them in the last 20 years.
Brad Johnson.
Yeah, but that's going back to a completely different era.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm talking about
in
the Manning, from the time that Brady and Manning started to mature in the early 2000s to now, a run of, if you don't have
Flacco and Foles.
Yeah, if you don't have, like, a superior quarterback, a guy who's a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, you better get kind of lucky and on a serious roll, Flacco or Foles.
What's funny you say that? It's like the stars aligned in 17 that year for the Eagles, because if I'm not mistaken, the NFC Championship game was Case Keenum versus Nick Foles. And instead of having Breeze or Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship game on the other side, and things kind of fell into play for that organization to go on. And like you say, you sneak in and you end up winning one.
Right. And, Nick Foles plays out of his mind, for a while. And, like, I remember Nick Foles looking like a great off guard who is in one of those catch and shoot moments, because they had him back in the gun so much, right? And he'd just catch it and he'd flip. Like, it was almost like watching an off guard who can't miss in a game, and it's like having 3 straight games where he's hitting 40 a night. Like, it's Steph Curry. He's like Steph Curry. Catch it, shoot it. Catch it, shoot it. Catch it, shoot it. He was in a amazing rhythm, and that was probably the only time in his career he was ever going to be like that.
It was like Eli. It was a lot like Eli when Eli was.
Eli's career is weird, and we've talked about it before. Eli was a whole lot better player than his career.
Oh, yeah.
His career, like, he's a really great player who, again, played like most of it. He played most of his career like he woke up every morning at the frat house, and they had an intramural game that afternoon, and maybe he was hungover from the night before, and maybe he wasn't. Okay, and he could be brilliant sometimes, and a lot of time it was like, okay, I'm slinging it, and, we'll see how it goes, right?
117 and 1. I don't know.
117 and 1.
117 and 1. You're going to put that guy in the Hall of Fame.
But that's what I'm talking about. But there's 2 titles rolled in there, and
MVPs,
and two of the greatest throws in the history of the Super Bowl. Like,
and
like
against Brady.
right. And like you put it all together, an undefeated Brady. Like
It's
you just sit there
stupid.
and go, right. It's a crazy resume because I think that he never really looked like he wasn't like his brother. It was life and death every week.
Right.
It was, and truthfully, that's part of Eli's genius. Because if you play that way and you're in New York, think about the mental stress that you have. Like, you sort of have to be like Eli, where, okay, like I'm doing the best I can, folks. And, sometimes it doesn't look great and you're going to boo and, it's all right, but I'll come back. I'll be weak. You're going to, and
Jason,
you're
I
all going
love
to
you,
watch.
my friend. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Be good.
You got it. That is my friend, Jason Cole, Hall of Fame voter. Do me a favor, friends. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.